we're 1 month in. I guess maybe we're 5 weeks now in. 6 listings signed and several more appointments. I got a few appointments a week, and my close rate at appointments for these is pretty high. Probably 80%.
All right, folks. I got you a really good one this time. A great. Not just a testimonial, more like a case study, because I want to go a little bit deeper on than we normally do. Today, I've got Jonny Wells, a real estate agent out of Austin, Texas, and has done an amazing job in a very short amount of time with his ISA team. But I want him to do more of the talking, and I'll ask a few questions here and there. Jonny, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? How long have you been in your business? What's your background? How'd you get into real estate? And where are you? Where's your business right now? Go for it.
Yeah, Jonny Wells. I am in Austin, Texas. So my background's actually in orthopedic medical device sales and capital equipment sales. Did that for about 8 years, had a big business in California. Absolutely loved it, reached the pinnacle of that career, and knew I wanted to challenge myself in new ways. So I started selling real estate part-time in California. This was back in 2020, right? So I did that part-time for a year, sold 12 million part-time, and so that felt good. I was about to transition completely over. I got 3 little kids, sadly got divorced, and for family reasons decided to pick everybody up and move to Austin, Texas. They all came with me and started over out here. And so I'm about a year and a half into selling real estate, slanging houses out here in Austin.
That's a big change. So you dipped your toe into real estate a little bit in California, right? And that was a crazy time. Like California in 2020 was kind of no joke, right? It was like, no open houses, no showing. It was hardcore among hardcore areas. So to have that kind of success in a market like that is awesome. You move it, you go east, you go to Austin, and let's be honest, you're starting over. Like you're starting over from scratch, and you're trying to build a business. What's been your strategy to build? Tell us a little bit about where your business is today, because you started from zero in Austin, started over again. You knew real estate, you knew sales, and that's important to understand, right? You had some skills coming into this, but what was your strategy to build a business from zero? A lot of agents try to do that. A lot of agents fail at that when they're trying to restart.
Yeah, so I've been selling since the day I started selling about $1 million a month, right, on average here in Austin. And the reason, like you mentioned, I had some sales skills, some business management skills that I think a lot of other agents don't have. But it's all cold prospecting, all of it.
Gotcha.
And it's actually the blessing and curse, right? So when you start over a completely new area, you don't know anyone. Well, I'm not tempted to waste my time calling my friends and calling people who don't have homes, right? Don't have homes to sell. Right, because I don't have those people, so I'm not networking and calling all my friends and say, "Hey, do you know anybody who needs to buy or sell?" I'm only having conversation with people who I suspect own homes, right? So I'm starting there. Do you own a home? Are you interested in selling it? And that's all of my conversations.
So you started prospecting from day one. That was your strategy. You're like, I'm relocating, I'm uprooting. You might have known people 20 years ago in Austin, maybe not, who knows? But you're like, this is, I need today money. Got 3 kids to feed, boom, got to start over, right? So you hit the ground run. So cold calling was a strategy from day one. Prospecting was the strategy from day one.
Absolutely, yeah. Day one, I had a listing appointment on my 3rd dial, on the first day, right?
That's encouraging.
But that's just picking up the phone, right? That's obviously there's a flavor of luck, but you got to have your hook in the water to get lucky, right?
Yeah, luck is, and I'm stealing this from somebody, I don't know who, but luck also is kind of opportunity meets preparation, right? Opportunity tends to be preparation. Oh, how lucky that was, right? As well. I agree with you. So you're in Austin, and you're in Austin in a pretty interesting time, Jonny. Let's not beat around the bush. You were there at the boom of boom times, right? Yeah. And then we're not in the boom of boom times anymore in Austin, are we? So what's that been like from your perspective? You're prospecting. I'm assuming you're calling when you're calling expired, canceled, FSBO, the usual suspects. How was that like a year and a half ago? How's that like now? How's the market shifted?
Yeah, it's challenging for sure because we're in a declining market. So everything's tough. Nothing feels good. You got to be creative, right? But that's the entirety of like also the opportunity I have as well. So I can't be too upset about it. There's like the number of off market listings there are. It's just there's 10 times as many, or I don't even know how many more, but there's many, many more opportunities. There's so many failed deals, right? So that means all of my deals are challenging. It takes a lot of creativity and a lot of leadership, but there's way more. The opportunities wouldn't be there in the same kind of way. So it's the reason I'm here. It's the reason I'm having enough success to hire a team and keep growing. But it's challenging for sure. And let the
I love that.
competition starve. I'm grateful. Like, good, go hungry.
100%. You're right. You're actually right. I was trying to frame it as the market has shifted, but in this shift, you're going to have more expireds. You're going to have more canceled listings. You're going to have more sellers that might actually really need to sell, but because of the failure to adjust, unrealistic expectations early on, and maybe some bad advice, they weren't able to sell. So there's more of those people, I guess, now than there was a year and a half ago. Is what you're saying?
There's more conversation opportunities. It's actually the challenge, though, however, is that since Austin had a historic rise right before, actually most sellers have equity and most sellers have options, and most sellers don't really need to sell. So it's just a bunch of people who think their home's worth more than what it is. Everything about it feels bad. They have a price, like all that kind of stuff. So there's more conversation opportunities than there probably ever has been, right? There's more opportunity to differentiate. But like I said, most deals are challenging. They take creativity and a lot of leadership to guide them through their psychology and to get to where they need to be, set expectations, all that kind of stuff. But you can't, again, it's just two sides of the same coin, way more opportunity for conversations, but, it's a skills-based economy, what I like to say.
Yeah. I got it. Yeah, no, 100%. I think of 3-4 years ago. No offense intended here, but it didn't take a ton of skill to sell a home in Austin. Let's be honest, right? It didn't take a lot of skill. You had all these California buyers, all these people over the country coming over to Austin. I mean, everyone wanted to be there. It was the new San Francisco. All these things, right? And that is the different market now. And you've got to, like you said, leadership. Take people where they are, where their expectations are, and you got to bring them to reality. And get them, up and get moving, right? Get them in the right mindset and lead them. If you're going to be an order taker, it's not a good market for that. If you're going to be an unskilled salesperson, you're not going to sell many homes in Austin right now, because it actually takes skill to sell homes in Austin right now. And Jonny, I've always believed this, right? Austin is ahead of the curve. Now, Austin is a different market than most of the country, but I think we might be heading there. Who knows? But a shifting market, a more balanced market, values the skilled agent. Like you said, the skill-based economy. Yeah. A skilled agent is more valuable now in Austin than 4 years ago. And I don't think anyone would argue with that. It matters more that you're a skilled agent than ever before, because homes aren't flying off the shelf, right? So let's fast forward to now. So you're prospecting based. In a sense, the market is kind of, giving you more opportunities to have conversations. What motivated you to build an ISA team? Why was ISA a solution to add to your team?
Absolutely. There's only so many hours in the day, right? I can only do so many things. The way I thought of it is I thought, man, if there was just one more of me, if all I could do is just set appointments all day, right? If that's all I had, if I didn't have to service, follow up, if I could just pound the phone and set appointments all day, if that was my only job. I just played that out over the year, which is kind of my pickup rate and contact rate and appointment set rate. I said, man, I would have more business than anybody could know what to do if I just had no distractions and all I had to do was dial. And so, I still need to be the face of the business, the one leading the deals, right? Again, they're tough deals, right? So we actually not only have to get the listing contracts, we get them close. So I decided, man, I need people, who are setting appointments. And really, actually, what first brought the idea to the forefront was coming across your company through Brandon Morenin and reverse selling, right? So when I came across that,
love it.
That's when I saw that the numbers made sense. It was obvious, right? The cost to input, I was like, oh, it was a no-brainer to go that route. Where before it was a little bit more of a hump to get over to justify the short-term financial expense if I was going to hire somebody, local at a local rate, right?
I love it. I love it. Totally understand. I love Brandon. Brandon's, a client, friend of the company. And a lot of folks that follow him are prospecting based. Like it's one of his strengths, right? It's kind of his claim to fame. And this whole concept of adding leverage is very popular. But Jonny, I'm also going to be really honest, and I've had this conversation with Brandon too. A lot of his audience, right? A lot of his audience, whenever he talks about it, he loves talking about ISAs and he hates talking about ISAs. And I'll tell you why. Mm-hmm. The reason is some of his audience, although they like the idea of prospecting and cold calling, they don't like the idea of picking up the phone. And Brandon's big fear, whenever he talks about ISA, which is why he does it every now and then, not all the time, every now and then. And the first thing he says is, this is not a reason to get off the phone, right? Because a lot of agents want to hire an ISA and kind of abdicate that responsibility. They're like, I don't have to make calls anymore. I'm just going to attend these come list me appointments, and I'm kind of done. In fact, I will go even further. Agents that never called in the first place think that bringing on an ISA, they won't ever have to call. They'll just attend appointments. That's all they're going to have to do. And Brandon is really against that. I'm really against that. How have you made? Well, first of all, let me take another approach to this. What have been the results so far? How long have you been working with Power ISA and your ISAs? How long have they been working for you, and what have been the results so far? Why don't we start with that?
Yeah, we're 1 month in. I guess maybe we're 5 weeks now in. 6 listings signed and several more appointments. I got a few appointments a week, and my close rate at appointments for these is pretty high. Probably 80%. And there's actually, we've had other listing appointments as well that I've, just had to turn down because their price expectations weren't correct. And just, so some I had to walk away from, but yeah, 6 listings signed. And, I got 1 or 2 more coming on soon. Just a very strong short-term pipeline, and the midterm pipeline is filling up nicely as well.
I love that. So that's a home run. Like that is not even a home run. It's like a grand slam home run. That's not a 1-run shot. That's a 4-run shot. So those have been amazing results, right? And I mentioned it already. It's opportunity finds preparation, right? Opportunity finds preparation, and I think that's what's happened here. So, okay, you hear this idea from Brandon Mulrennan, smart guy, right? And you said, okay, I want an ISA to help me add leverage. So you come to Power ISA, you interview a bunch of people. What was that process like? And what have you done with these ISAs? I want to dig into detail and tell us that story. How did you start, and how's it been going for that first month and a half?
Yeah, well, the process was great. You guys gave me as many options I needed to interview, and I would just encourage people to interview as many people as they need to until they feel, strong about someone. However, circling back to what we were talking about before, you absolutely have to be a player coach for it to work, right? So you have to have the skills to prospect, and you have to be doing it with them. There maybe could be some day in the future if I have a long-term relationship with one person who's doing a great job for a long time to where I could be less and less involved potentially, but you shouldn't even want that. It's not feasible. You got to be a player coach. You have to be on the phone with them and doing it with them. There's just no other way to train them and to lead them unless you're doing it with them.
I got you. So, I love that term, player coach, right? So you didn't immediately delegate. You're not retiring from the phone. You see it as adding leverage. It's adding leverage. It's another Jonny, right? Setting appointments, in addition to yourself. You're setting appointments too. You're making calls as well, right? So, but you've got another, a couple people there making calls and helping you out, and you're leading by example. I think that, people, when they see results like this is just an amazing result. That success leaves clues, right? To get a result as large as this, as fast as this, it means you've got a proven system. You've got a system that works. You're just adding leverage to it, right? And I can't, overstate that fact. You've got a to get a result like this, you've got a proven system that you're adding leverage into. That's how you can get, really, really awesome results so quickly, like the ones you've gotten. So let's get into the next level of detail. You get those ISAs in. What do you have them help you with? What are they calling? Are they calling, maybe your old, like super 3-year-old expireds? Are they doing circle? What was the approach that you took to kind of ease them into or ramp up? Because that was a pretty quick ramp up.
Yeah, I put them on old expired, past expired listings, right? Ones that were at least a few months to a year old, right? Those people their phone's not getting blown up as much right now, right? And so they're more likely to pick up. They're less likely to be defensive right away. It's still not a layup conversation because they did get blown up a few months ago, right? But I have an abundance of those opportunities, and so that's where we started. I think the most important, few of the most important things is the one, you have to be a player coach. You have to know how to cold call as well. You have to work out the script, and you have to work on the script with them. You have to tailor it to your area. You have to tailor it to, you have to give them a little bit of flexibility and freedom sometimes. But you have to be there with them, like making calls and getting as quick, short loop feedback as possible. The other biggest, most important thing is that I hired two, right? If I only hired, and I knew that right from the get go, if I only hired one guy, I would not have a reference point for how good or bad that person is doing, because cold calling's hard, right? So I would only know, I'd get, some gut feeling about their efforts, but skill, aptitude, coachability, all that kind of stuff, I'd only have one reference point. There's just nothing to judge it against. So getting two people was by far the most important thing, because it also enabled me, one, you're leveraging your time. So when I'm coaching one person, I'm coaching two. So that's twice as effective. I get better at it more quickly because you have to be a great leader. So you have to be committed to becoming a better leader as well. But since I have the two, I'm leveraging my time. I lost my train of thought there just a little bit. Forgive me. But
no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree with that, because that is, all of those pieces, right, are part of what is going to make that, a successful machine. 100%. So you started them out with the old expireds, right? And let's be honest, there's lots of lists. You have an abundance of opportunities. There's some you're just never going to get to. Like you're probably hitting up the newer ones, the higher converting. You can leave the older ones, potentially lower converting ones, to your ISA to pick up the slack. Because another mistake that I see agents they can make is throwing a brand new ISA, however skilled they are. It might be the most skilled person ever, into the hardest, potentially highest converting, but most challenging lead source you've got, is not a smart strategy. I think that's rarely going to work. I think having them start with something you're not even calling yourself because you don't have the time is safer, right? You give them an opportunity to fail. They're going to have some failures early on. It's going to happen. It's part of the process. I think that's a great strategy. But here's a question I have for you, Jonny, because I get this question a lot. And I have my own opinion about it. But you mentioned they've been helping you get appointments. So what does that handoff look like? I get a lot of questions about that, because some agents, like I mentioned before, kind of jokingly, I said some agents only want come list me appointments. That's the bar that they set. And it's a very unrealistic, in my opinion, very unrealistic bar. When you have your ISAs calling these old expires, might have been a year ago, right? They're but again, like you said, they know what the call's about. Like they know they know what the score is, right? But they got hammered a year ago. It's been a year. What do you want that ISA to come across? What point do you want them to come across with? What do you want them to go for? And what do you want them to hand off then to you? Come list me appointments. Let's assume that's fine. But what else do you want them to hand off to you? Because I think that's where a lot of the rubber hits the road. What do you think about that?
Okay, so there's a lot there. One thing to touch on first is you mentioned, is some people want to put them on the hardest leads that might have a higher conversion rate or whatever, and everywhere in between. I didn't want them day one calling the new expireds for that reason. I wanted them called the little bit older expireds. Just that would be just a little bit less challenging right up. But I would tell you, if y'all go about it with your script correctly with the ISAs for any lead source, it's really not tough for an ISA. And maybe that's not the simplest way to put it, but let me put it this way. They're just selling their expert. You're only asking for you to have a conversation with an expert, and that is a really easy sell. That's a really low bar. There's so much forgiveness. They can stutter, they can talk slow, they get so much forgiveness because you're already projecting credibility out, because they know that this is someone who works for someone else, asking them if they want to speak to an expert, which spikes curiosity, and then there's credibility there. So people are way easier on an ISA saying, "Hey, do you want to talk to my expert Jonny Wells?" than they are on me. Like if I'm their end person, now they're judging me, right? I got to be sharp, because they're making their mind up about whether I'm someone to talk to or not. But it's just confidence sells, right? So confidence sells, and so all they need to do is be confident in that their guy is the guy you need to talk to. So that's what we talk about. Like, hey, all you have to do is tell them, like, hey, Johnny's the best at what he does, and you should really talk to this guy. Are you open? Can we get you on the call? Like, that's it. And so that's actually a pretty low bar. The next, but to answer your question more fully, no, it's definitely not come list me appointments, right? I just want to know, do they own a home and are they open to selling it? That is literally it. We tried for the first day with having a little bit more kind of qualifying questions, and I immediately saw that was the complexity there was too much, and that we were going to fumble the ball on all kinds of other lead opportunities we could otherwise have if we just simplify it. And of course, with the openness of, maybe we'll throw some back in at a later day, but I said, today, just find out if they own the home, find out if they're open to selling the home, and then get them on the phone with me. Like that's it. Nothing. Other complexity.
I love that because I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right. Like drilling down, having a more qualified lead sounds great in theory. It sounds great. That's amazing. But the devil's in the details. When the rubber hits the road, what does that actually mean? And do you need a skilled agent to make that determination? Do you need someone that knows what they're doing to actually understand that? If there's any desire to do anything, they should be talking to you 100%. That's what they should be doing. Like no if, and, or buts, right? Like that is something that I think that's the right handoff point. That's what I recommend agents all the time. And I want to clarify that, right? Because you're like, oh, you're getting these many appointments per week. You're getting the appointments in reality, right? You're generating the appointment. The ISA is handing off the at bats. They're giving you you're batting 345, but the ISA is like giving you those, right? They're making the 300 calls to give you the 1, 2, or 3 people that are confirmed homeowner, right? Confirmed contact information. They're talking to them, obviously, and there's some curiosity about selling. Is that fair? Is that a fair way to lay it out?
That's literally it. That's all I want to know, because I just thought to myself, if I could just talk to people who own houses all day long, if I was just booked all day long, then I would be set. That's it. So no other complexity. Do they own the house? Are they open to selling? That's it. If you go further than that, you're gonna just fumble all over the place. And in my market particularly, again, it's just another blessing. Like, it was very clear. There's a lot of complexity in my market right now. It's not so simple. And so it was very clear to me right away, like, oh no, we can't stress out too much about trying to pre-qualify leads. Just get them moved through.
Okay, I love that. I love that because that's the right approach. In fact, I'll put it another way. I've never seen a different approach work in this kind of work and prospecting. I've never seen people talk about, oh, I only want transaction ready, come list me's, and it just, oddly enough, it never seems to happen, right? Because the complexity is there. The complexity is there, and you need Jonny to do that. Like, Jonny can figure that out, right? That's your job. But that job doesn't go away with the ISA. It just becomes way more efficient, right? You don't have to make the 300 calls to talk to the 3 people. You just talk to the 3 people, right? But that part of the job actually doesn't go away. Let me circle back to something you said before. I think is a really important point. This strategy you took of hiring 2 people. I see that a lot. No, sorry, I think about. I don't see that enough. But what I do see a lot of is sometimes the agent can't select between 2 candidates. Like, oh man, like they both look really, really skilled. I'm really liking, the energy. The experience that they're coming with is really good. Man, I can't decide. It's too close. What I like to tell people is that it seems too close right now, right? That you can't decide. Get their butts in the chair make calls for a week, maybe two. I promise you, you're not going to think that a week from now. Like, it's impossible. Like, it's never happened in the history of man, because the interview is just such limited information. It's such a small sample of what you need to make a decision. And sometimes people make a decision. That's fine. I mean, you make a bet, see what happens, right? But when people make that decision, they only hire one person. We always set the expectation. It might take you 2 to 3 people to find that really good output, especially cold calling. Cold calling is hard. So to get that one person, hiring 2 people is accelerating that process, right? You're making it more efficient for yourself, and you're discovering it, and I think you're accelerating the progress, right? If you would have hired both of these guys sequentially, right, it might have taken you way longer to get the result you've got right now. It might have just taken you way longer, twice the time, maybe more. So I think there's an efficiency to begin. Not everyone's in the position to do that. I understand it. But a week or 2, I think, is a worthy investment when you cannot decide between 2 people, because in reality, it's never going to play out that way, where I can't tell the difference between the 2 people when you're a week or 2 in. It doesn't work that way. 2 really good ISAs, one is going to outperform the other by 10, 20, 30%, but a lot of times by 2, 3, 400% is usually what happens.
Yeah, it's the single most important thing someone can do other than being a player coach. Like being a player coach and getting 2 people, you have to, because so you mentioned just kind of the time savings to get to the result, to get to that one person who works out. Yeah, of course. But I think the other side of it is that you don't even know what good is unless you have a reference point, right? I mean,
100%.
Like you just don't know, right? So if you don't have that, if you don't have the 2 people down, you just can't tell who's better at what. Like, if because the ROI, right? If I'm getting one listing appointment every couple of weeks from someone like that still pencils out. It still pencils out, but is it great? Hold on, I got to charge this thing here. Boom. It still pencils out, but is it phenomenal? So it was the most important thing for me. So I hired 2 guys. I really liked them. To your point, one of them is outperforming the other by 1,000%, right? It's not right even there. Close.
That's usually how it plays out.
And it's not what I expected. I thought the other guy was going to be better at first.
Exactly. So that's another thing, right? So that's why you have to. This job humbles you. The sales in general, let's be honest, prospecting in sales. We have to. I think me as an expert in this area, I'm continuously humbled by this role because of how hard it is, right? And how our own bias, let's call it what it is, can get in the way, which is why I love what you did, which is kind of take the bias out of it. Let's let it play out. Get on the phone and let's let the numbers decide, right? Numbers tend to be way less biased than our own perception. I kind of like this guy better. I think the role play sounded better. Get on the phone. The answer is always get on the phone. And the truth has a funny way of kind of, coming out that way. And I love you made that point because it played out. Like, a lot of the stuff that I believe sometimes I question it. I'm like, man, I love talking about these case studies because it reminds me you actually don't know. You don't, right? You don't. And you got to let it play out. You've got to make the calls. That's why the job is so hard. That's why, and I welcome being humble, man. I am not against that because I'm like, okay, this is why that is true, because it's not that easy to predict what's going to happen based on the limited information in an interview, in a role play, etc. Because this job doesn't just take sounding good on the phone. It takes grit, right? It takes tenacity. It takes, and there's always an element of luck as well. Why not? But like I said, preparation meets opportunity, and that grit, I can't find an interview for that. For tenacity and for grit, you kind of have to let it play out. So Jonny, going into it, because I know I'm going to get questions about this in the comments, questions over email. So let me just get ahead of it. Can you tell us a little bit about, like, when you're talking about lead sources, when you're talking about dialers, are there recommendations you can make to the community, to the audience? What dialer did your ISA team use? Any specific data source you recommend, or maybe not even recommend? What did you use? Right, like, tell people what has been working for you. Of course, everything's always market specific, but people would love to know what's been working for you guys technology wise. What technology stack do you guys use?
Yeah. Vulcan 7, that's what I started off with. It's the only thing I know. Open other things, but there's just no need right now. So we use Vulcan 7, works great.
Perfect.
I did a Zapier integration, so I'm able to push those through to my follow-up boss when appropriate. That's kind of when I take over the handoff. We move them into follow-up boss because we have some other marketing and targeting that happens there. So I like to get the email, and getting an email is part of getting a lead for us, right? But yeah, just Vulcan 7 for leads with high intent, like off-market leads. We like the single line dialer. We will be integrating a multi-line dialer for new leads when we start those soon. Like circle prospecting, absentee type stuff, we'll be throwing in the mix here soon. And for that, we'll start integrating a multi-line dialer. But I haven't used it or tested it yet.
Yeah, but the results you've gotten so far has been a single line, and you've used Vulcan 7 for the data. Love Vulcan 7. I think they do a great job. That's tremendous. And and thank you so much for sharing that. So let's talk about, getting down to the details, right? So walk us through what that process is like. ISA makes a call. We've talked about what the handoff looks like. Confirmed homeowner, some curiosity to sell. Some of those, calls go successful, and you're converting them to an appointment. If not, Jonny, what's the follow-up look like? Because a lot of these, you're getting a lot of front-end success. Like you said, early pipeline has been tremendous. The middle and longer-term pipeline is probably going to be even bigger than that. That's usually how these things work, right? Yeah. A 12-month conversion rate is always higher than your 1-month conversion rate. What does your follow-up process look like? Is the ISA helping nurture some of these people that are not ready to talk to you yet? Or are they handing off anyone with a pulse that's a homeowner? Are they handing off to you? And what does a follow-up look like for either you or the ISA?
So their goal for every call is, if it's a homeowner who has any interest in, selling or having a conversation, is to get them to me. That's goal number one. Goal number two is to get a lead, right? So if now is clearly, obviously not the right time, it's immediately is to say, hey, sounds like now's not the right time. Would you be totally opposed to me checking back in next year? And then we're going to call in 6 months, or in 6 months, we're going to call in 3 months. We always cut it in half, right? That's kind of the general rule of thumb. So they just keep in mindful that they have those two goals, right? It's either get them on the phone with me or get the lead, right? Their bonus off of calls met. So people who actually talk to me, not calls set. So they will set the calls for me, but that's not their bonus. They got to get the people on the phone because I want them involved through the whole process of making sure that they get on the phone with me. That's both sometimes texting the prospect and, double checking, confirming the appointment, things like that. If there's an appointment, there's not always an appointment, which I'll cover in a second. The other is what I call managing up, right? You gotta manage up. You have to lead your leader sometimes. You have to be the squeaky wheel and be like, Jonny, I got a dude on your calendar in 15 minutes. You're dialed. You're ready to go, right? And that keeps me accountable because I like mutual accountability. I say, hey, I need you guys to be accountable. I need to be accountable to you too. So I want you all to have the right to say, like, hey, are you doing your part, Jonny? Are you dialed and ready to be on the phone with these people on time and to close them and get me my bonus for a listing appointment and get me my bonus for a closed listing, right? So their only bonus, their top of funnel bonus is calls met. So that's the most important part. They're still involved. We did experiment with appointments, and we're still experimenting versus not appointments. What we're currently doing now, and I'm really happy with it, I think we'll keep doing, because I'm a player coach, I'm dialing every day with them, not nearly as long, but I start every day dialing as well. And then after our first hour, we'll do our team call review, right? And we'll listen to one of their calls and we'll listen to one of my calls, and they'll coach me and I'll coach them. And it's just a great culture, and it's an aggressive sales culture. Is, hey, who's got one on the board today? We're competing, right? So there's all that good stuff. After we finish that follow-up call or the team coaching call, I'm going to call through all the call sets that we have. So right now there's 8 call sets that I've not actually spoken to, right? So I dial through that whole list. And after I dial through everybody 3 times, if I've tried three times, I double dial each one. And if I've tried and failed 3 times, then I send it back to them. I put it in the hot or the warm list and tag them. And I send it back and say, hey, it's your job to get them back on the phone and get them, back and ready to have a conversation with me. So to wrap that up, when they do the handoff, they are to say, hey, Jonny will give you a call later today or tomorrow, basically something like that. In indeterminate amount of time, Johnny's going to give you a call by tomorrow, something like that. And then since we started with setting calendar appointments, and it was just way too much. It was all over the place, different calendar times. However, they're more comfortable closing with a calendar appointment. So once I took that away from them, they started struggling to close as much. So I gave it back to them. I said, okay, here's the deal. I still want you to say Johnny's going to call you later or tomorrow, kind of thing. If they're really specific that there's a time that they need me to call, go ahead, put it on the calendar. I'll approve it or deny it. It's not a guarantee, but I'm still going to call them tomorrow at that time, and the next day at the time that works for me, and the next day at the time that works for me. So and then you're going to be involved because you want the call met. We're going to get them.
Reminded me. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing a little bit of a hybrid approach. I just gave them three very small call blocks on a Calendly link for the times, like 2 slots that I will take a point. Is basically, does morning, afternoon, or evening work better for you, kind of thing, right? And so when the client says call me in the evening, I've got 2 call slots there, and I'll make those calls. And regardless, I'm still calling them at 9 a.m. every day, right? So half the time I'll call, they'll book an appointment for that evening, but I'll call them in the morning anyways, and I'll connect with them half the time before then, and it'll be fine.
I love that. So and one, maybe you already covered them. I might have missed it. So those are for the people they hand off to you, and they're either gonna indeterminate time, or if they insist, they'll book it on your calendar in those slots. Has to be it's not like a wide open. Let's see whenever it lands, because that's a recipe to not make the call. Right? You've got some specific times that you've set aside. I love that. If it's not handed off to you and it's lead, someone that wants, maybe the first of the year, maybe next spring, whatever their answer happens to be, then that's an ISA follow-up, right?
Yeah, it's their pipeline, and it's really crucial for a lot of reasons for it to be that way. They're building up their own pipeline for themselves to make it rain for themselves, right? They're planting their own harvest. Super important, given this time of year in Austin. Not a lot of people interested in relisting their homes right now. We just signed all these listing agreements. We're doing it. Most people we talk to, they want to relist in spring or maybe January and February, right? And so, but what that means is we have this, warm list and nurture list for at the end of this year and early next year that is really starting to stack up. And so my guys are going to get a ton of listings, and they're going to get a ton of listing contracts and a ton of closings this spring, and so they're going to be bonused appropriately, and it's good for them. They need to be responsible for that pipeline, but they're excited about it too. It's not too far in the distant future. I'm still bonusing them on calls met, top of funnel stuff, but they're going to have some, they're going to reap a harvest come that time. So yeah, it's their responsibility. Absolutely crucial.
I love that, because and this is such an important part of the equation, that top of funnel bonus, that top of funnel goal. You have to have a top of funnel goal. A lot of agents make the mistake that they can put a huge bonus in the back end, and that's all you need. That's not enough. That's not enough, right? I always recommend take some money from that back end, take some money off of that, and sprinkle it on the top of funnel, because that's going to keep the IC engaged. Gamers want bonuses. People are not in this. And they're not only in this for the hourly rate. Hourly rate is great, but they're the gamers, the guys you actually want on your team, want those bonuses, right? And you're sprinkling some of it on the top of the funnel, and you're leaving a bonus also on the back end. I think that's a smart way to do it, and it's a great retention tool. It's not let's be clear. It's a great way to retain top performers, because they're building that pipeline. They're going to cash in. Calls you make right now, for most agents, they're going to cash those checks in the spring. Most agents are, right? You guys are killing it ASAP. But a lot of agents, they can have a great calling session in October and November, and they're going to cash those checks in February, March, and April, right? So 100%. And that's definitely the right approach. So, I mean, Jonny, this has been such a great conversation, man. I love it. We touched on compensation and hiring practices and the ISA handoff and the technology stack. So one more question about the technology stack, because I actually didn't know this until this call. You have Follow Up Boss as your CRM, and you seem to have got like an integration to make sure that. So just to make sure I understand the technology stack, your ISAs are making calls with Vulcan. When they select someone or tag someone in Vulcan, that's making its way into Follow Up. Do they work directly in Follow Up Boss, or are they just working on the Vulcan system?
So they have follow boss access for sure for
Okay.
a few reasons, and a follow boss number, so they can also text people very seamlessly, and it all gets tracked and stuff like that. So what it is that when they get a lead of any type, whether hot, warm, seller, nurture, or what we call a call set, to me, right there, it's a one. Once they've uploaded their notes, it's one button. You click it, and it sends it over to follow boss. Then they go in there, they tag it as theirs, or one or two other little tags to keep it tidy. And so that allows those leads to get all of my marketing and to be in my entire ecosystem. So it's just increasing the value of the leads. There is no phone call management for them in there, though. All their phone calls are staying in Vulcan for simplicity. Or anyone who they're responsible as a CRM, they're responsible for making their phone calls and tracking their notes in Vulcan. What it also does for me is once the appointment is set, I now take over it. I remove them from Vulcan. I put them just in a different folder in Vulcan that says, hey, they're now managed in Follow Up Boss, and they're managed by me. Once I've made a conversation, they're now my ownership. And it seemed to work really well, because then I work out a Follow Up Boss, and that's where the rest of my business is integrated, and they get my newsletters and things like that. So that's seemed to be really worthwhile. And so Vulcan will do that for you. If you just got to get a Zapier account and then ask Vulcan for help, and they'll set it up for you.
I love that. So, because you've got, some marketing automation, you've got online, because, Follow Boss is probably one of the premier, CRMs. A lot of people use it for internet lead generation, which it's really, really good at. But, I love it when you find a use for it on the prospecting side, because even though you generated this lead, it wasn't generated via Facebook or Google. It was generated by ISA power or prospecting power. But what? So I've had this conversation with Brandon. Once the lead has been generated, though, you didn't pay. You either paid Google, you paid Facebook, or you did some elbow grease and generated on the phone. Once the lead has been generated, the game is remarkably the same. Use the automation, use the marketing, use the follow-up systems in these CRMs, because once the lead is in there, now it's game on, regardless of, I don't think it matters whether you got it from Google or from Facebook or whether your ISA called it. It's in there. You know who they are. It's qualified. Now it's just a follow-up game. And I love that you're using the technology in your favor to make that happen. So you've got these folks on newsletters, you're sending them email automation. Are you sending them texting automation for these contacted leads, or is it just the email automation you're using?
No, I'm not crazy about it, but they will be getting some just a weekly text and things like that soon. I'm only a year and a half in, right? So there's all kinds of things all kinds of sexy wheels and stuff or widgets, that I would love to add, but none of it's necessary. Just focus on getting on the phone.
I love that. 100%. The phone is king. Phone is king.
These leads are way better, in my opinion, than any internet lead, though, for a lot of reasons that are obvious. But how about we also know that they're the homeowner. We also know that their phone number is good. We know that they're the kind of person who picks up their phone to an unidentified number. Just everything about it is better. They own a home, interested in selling. They've had a conversation with us. Maybe it went pretty well. They pick up phone calls from numbers they don't know. Everything about it is exponentially more valuable than an internet lead.
I love it. Oh, and Jonny, thank you so much. I want to be mindful of the time. If someone is considering, right, let's kind of recap this and put a bow on it. If someone is considering hiring an ISA, adding leverage to their business, let's do because you've said several things that are just so key to their success. Can we kind of recap that? What recommendations would you give them if they're asking that question? Should I hire an ISA to help grow my business? Go for it.
Clear your calendar for a month. All the stuff that you normally do that you think is important, but for some reason, obviously hasn't moved the needle in a massive way in your business. Have the first 4 hours of your day, every day, just to be on the phone with them, coaching, training, leading, scripting, getting better with processes, making new processes. Just clear your calendar. You're making a huge investment in yourself, right? And in your business. Clear your calendar and just make sure that you do it right. Hire 2 people. Don't have any excuses for that. And if you need to let one go quickly, right? Hire 2 people. You absolutely have to have that reference point. You're literally doubling your leverage on your time when you're coaching them. And those are the biggest ones. Just clear your calendar.
I love it.
Hire two people. Be responsible for the entire process, at least for a month, and then you can really, you can pare it down very quickly. But you have to have that just kind of overwhelming input on the upfront to learn, be accountable, 100%. Be successful.
Yeah, 100%. I think every hour spent leveraging lead generation, hiring an ISA, training an ISA, helping out with that process is a $10,000 an hour activity. I really believe that, right? And I think you're demonstrating it, Jonny. You're demonstrating it like with numbers, saying, hey, every hour you put into this team, you're going to get back multiples and multiples of that time. But it does take time, especially at the beginning. It takes time. You're going to take a little bit of a step back and put in more hours, right, early on to really get a massive result. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think that, I think that's the reason you're getting such amazing results. So Jonny, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hey, appreciate you.